Welcome, everyone. Today, joining us live at UXCam, we've got Janna Bastow. Janna was actually the co-founder of Mind the Product, a product community with I think it's more than 300,000 members now. And Janna is now the founder of ProdPad. So many of you on this chat right now, if you have any experience in product, I'm sure there's a good chance you have seen Janna in the product world. I remember when I first met her, it was in New York City at a conference, and I was just blown away by Janna's knowledge about product. And as somebody who had a lot of product experience myself, I was like, who is this person I keep seeing popping up? And then I actually met her in person. So it's actually really a thrill for me to have Janna here today. And we're going to be talking all about AI, specifically why most product teams are using AI wrong these days. So without further ado, Janna, why don't you introduce yourself to all these folks that are joining us right now?
Yeah, thanks so much for the warm welcome, and great to get a chance to work together on this. So people probably know me as a product person in some way or the other. Like as you said, I'm one of the founders of the Mind the Product community. Myself and one of my other founders at Mind the Product went on to found ProdPad, which is the software for product people. And along the way, I've done a bunch of consulting and coaching and training and mentoring and a whole bunch of stuff working with product teams. So basically, I've had thousands of conversations about and with product people and learning how their teams work and what works, what doesn't work. And this is, spread out over the last, I guess, 15, 20 years I've been doing product. So always happy to geek out and share my insights. And, also, with topics like this, think about where the future is going with product as well.
Well, and that's really it. Like I know when we had a short conversation a few weeks ago, it's really all about, are you using AI? Yes. How are you using AI? And one of the things that really struck me is you mentioned, remember when we all had iPhones, say 2009
Yeah,
or so with
2009,
iPhones? Yeah,
2010,
2009.
it was coming in. It was just getting popular with
Mhm.
everyone.
And we all had those apps. I remember my sister had one where you could just pretend you were drinking like a glass of water and then it would just like make these sounds and it would like sort of pour out. And like, it's like whatever happened to those apps? And now it feels like the same with AI. It's like, okay, AI, AI, AI. AI is everywhere.
Well,
And
yeah.
yeah, tell me more about that.
And that's what's happening now, right? So we've got this new tech and people are just sort of, I don't know, lobbing it at every use case they can think of. And there's this proliferation of products, some of which are frankly probably pretty terrible. I haven't had a chance to try them all. There's way too many, right? But it's like our early days of mobile development, right? We weren't really sure what we could do with it, but we were exploring what the technology could do. And so you'd end up with apps that just took advantage of one thing or the other on it. We're mini apps that, looking back, we're never going to have this longevity to them, but had a use case in that time, even if it was just to see what we could do with it. And, over the years, we figured out what stuck, what didn't stick. We figured out patterns and ways that people use mobile, and certain things have lasted and certain things were flash in the pan, and that's fine too.
Yeah, and that's it. So like what would you say right now is like one of the biggest misunderstandings that, product teams that you're working with have about AI these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people think that AI is like this magic tool that's going to solve all things, but actually it's just another tool, right? It's like Photoshop to a photographer, right? It gave you new ways of doing stuff, but it's only as good as the problem that you give it. It's only as good as you apply the tool. And we're still figuring out how this tool can be applied to various problems, right? So, as I said, some of these things that are being created are going to be flash in the pan. Other things are going to be actually solving lasting, really difficult problems that couldn't have been solved before we had AI or before we had generative AI.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I know you mentioned as well, like it's such an like we're on the cusp of so much right now, but you still have to do manual work. You're still copying and pasting into things. So it's not like it's just fixed and solved right now either.
It's not all joined up yet, right? We're kind of at this really frustrating point where, I can see that this stuff is going to be useful, right? I can see that AI is going to take a lot of grunt work off me right now, a lot of admin work off me right now, or down the line. But right now, it's kind of doing an okay-ish job, but actually I'm still better than it at most things. It's use cases like there'll be daily jobs where I have to copy paste certain things from one thing to another. And AI, we haven't really figured out how to get past login auths and, have it check as often as it should do, but not too often, right? We haven't really let this thing off the hook. So it's not like, if you've seen the movie Her, it's all about an AI wrapped in a personal device that would basically just go in and do all the things for you. Like, cool, I can see how we get from here to there, but we've got a bunch of like awkward junctions where it kind of half works and badly works for a little while. It's again like the early days of mobile. You could see that this device in your pocket and having it be able to do stuff based on location or other contexts was really interesting. But we didn't have all the tools yet. It wasn't all joined up, and it was still for quite a while there more effective to print out MapQuest map directions and walk with them rather than use your phone, right?
That's a core memory unlocked. The MapQuest printout. I remember being in, it was like Cambodia or Thailand or something where we just had that. I remember bringing them from Canada all the way over. So, okay, I'm really aging and dating myself here, but let's go back to the grunt work. I know I've listened to other podcasts with you and we've talked about this before. AI is great for freeing up the grunt work, and so anything that can, simplify our day-to-day tasks and do the boring work, do the grunt work. So we have time to be free to do other things. Like, what would you say AI we shouldn't use as product folks?
Yeah.
What should we not use AI for right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's definitely things that it can take off your plate and make go faster, right? I love it for summarizing conversations and pulling in action items. But, when it comes to things like writing, for example, remember that writing is thinking, right? There's no point in taking away the grunt work if it means that you get nothing from it, right? If you're not able to process what it is that you're supposed to be learning from this piece of work that you're trying to put out there, right? If it takes away your creativity. I hate that AI seems to have taken over the arts, right? I mean, what's the point in learning to paint because now it can replicate, a perfectly beautiful piece of work and make it look like a human did it. That's such a shame. I wish it did our taxes first and gave us time to go spend on doing art, right? I think we've just got it all backwards. So don't let it take out things that require curiosity or creativity, and don't let it try to replace your judgment because humans have better judgment. AI is just going to tell you what it thinks you should hear or what, it spells out as, an average, a typical good sounding result, but it doesn't have that judgment, that gut feel that humans do.
Yeah, and I always feel sometimes like with AI when I use it for, certain tasks or tools or questions, it's like always like, oh wow, it's always like buttering me up. I feel like it's sort of like it's just making me more and more vain, like I'm the best person, you know what I mean? So it doesn't actually, it's still not a sentient being and it can't, differentiate between sort of right and wrong and both sides and everything like that. So especially when it comes to things like talking to your customers or customer interviews, like would you use AI in that way at all?
So there's lots of ways that it can help you with that, right? So I like using it to help, pick out from a bunch of customer data which ones I should go talk to, right? These ones look interesting, and it'll point me at where to look at. It'll help write the emails to send out to people, right? If it's just a transactional, hey, we're doing this thing, could you find some time to book in and chat with us? Cool, it can do that, right? I use AI and other tools to help pick better times to do talks, right? I use AI to summarize conversations with customers, so to record them. I'm terrible at taking notes, and AI is much better at me than this, right? But I keep the raw feedback, and I is good at summarizing and pulling out insights from it. But what it doesn't do, it's not good at figuring out what questions to ask while you're in the flow. Right? It might be able to give you a starter for 10, but actually you might be having this conversation talking about usability something, how they're solving a problem or a usability problem they run up against. As a human, you'll often go, oh, that's interesting, right? You'll make some connections between, the last 10 conversations you've had or something else, right? And you'll figure out where to dig in. AI is not doing that. And what bothers me about how AI often works is that it's able to give you something that looks like it's complete and it solved the problem, and you just breeze on through because you've turned off your brain, right? And in a conversation, you shouldn't turn off your brain. You should be thinking about what they're saying and then reflecting that. And AI often misses the opportunity to go, "Oh, hold on, we're just going to pivot this conversation and look into here, right? It'll glaze over and say the same thing 5 different ways and blow some smoke up your butt. But then it won't say, oh, but have you thought about the flip side or the implications of, or, this extension of this idea, right? It doesn't extend its thinking. It just tells you what it needs to, make it feel like it's done the right answer. And that's not to say that AI can't be pushed. I actually love using AI to do these summaries. And then I say, well, show me exactly what this person said. And now, turn it around the other way. What are the implications of that? Or where else have I seen this? Has any of our other research turned up something like this as well? So we use our ProdPad Copilot and we talk to it about our customer feedback, and it has access to all of our feedback. And so if you push it, it will help make connections and draw things out. But, we're not at a point right now where you can just say, yeah, here's a bunch of things people said. Now go make good, solid product decisions, because it won't. It won't know how to make those good, solid product decisions yet. It will give you a portfolio of options, and we've primed our Copilot to be good at prompting you to ask those further questions and say, hey, do you want me to look at this? Do you want me to look at risks and challenges or things like that? But, you've got to put that work in yourself to sort of think critically about what you're learning and where you want to take this conversation next.
Yeah, and also too, if you have AI talking to AI, pretending to be, customer to customer, right?
Oh,
And then I've heard you say this before, like then it's like AI can actually hallucinate and just make up stuff as well, right? So
yeah.
you're never really getting a 360 view of anything. You're actually not even getting correct information all the time, right? It's
Yeah.
making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. And I mean, think about what's happening when you're using AI, right? Oftentimes you're taking a transcript, and a transcript loses a lot of the nuance of what they've said. But also, like, when you are doing some sort of behavioral user testing or anything like that, you're talking to somebody to understand how they go about doing their job, what problems they have, how they're solving a problem in a different way. You're picking up on not just what they're saying, but you're picking up on how they talk about it. You're picking up on, watching them, right? There's nothing better than watching somebody try to use your app or try to use a competitor app or, try to use whatever it is that they're doing today. And you see these things, right? As humans, we have eyes and ears and way more sensors than the AI does. Now, I mean, talk to me about future AI that has all these same sensors. Maybe they'll be able to outperform us humans at picking up on these nuances. But right now, like, don't scrub off the really interesting bits by just, having it make up a bunch of questions, ask those questions, and then, read just the written answers for insights. You're going to be missing some of the picture. And the thing is, if that's the average, if that's how the typical product manager is working, the product manager is going to outperform them, is the one who's really listening to their customers, really sensing what's causing them problems, and is able to then hone in on how to solve those problems.
That's really interesting because one of the questions I was going to ask you, like sort of AI, we're able to build a lot of shiny features and sort of vanity stuff, right? How can product teams and product managers really build more strategic value within their organizations or their brands with all this shine and buzz right now? So say I work in product and I'm like, maybe I want to get a promotion. Maybe I want to advance my career. Maybe I want to connect with more customers, like how can I stand out? Like I know as a writer for me to stand out when I do work as a writer, not just this. Um, it's always about actually writing, not like you say, not taking away the creation. So how can product teams do that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing is going to be true for product teams in 10 years' time as it is today, which is if you want to get that promotion, if you want to show your worth, you got to show how you're providing a return on investment for the company, right? And think about it this way, right? The company is investing in you. They're spending 100,000, couple 100,000 on you and, your tools and everything else around you to have you in the team to make sure that you are solving problems for the business, right? And the problems that you're solving for the business are going to be different for every company, but there will be certain ways that you can go about doing so, right? So it's about understanding what's the context in which you're operating and what burning problems does the market present, and what technology is there today that you can help solve those problems in a way that you can do it for less money than they're spending on you, and boost the right numbers in the right direction, right? So most companies are looking for growth and revenue based type of figures, And so if you're able to say, hey, look, with my work here, I was able to talk to these customers, identify what was stopping them from paying us more money, and now they pay us more money. That's a clear return on investment, right? Now, where does AI come into that? Well, I mean, it might be that you're able to get more done because you've removed some of the grunt work, right? Maybe you don't need to spend a lot of time writing out user stories one by one, but you can actually use AI to help generate some that you can then sense check and put the right ones forward in a way that is easier for the next person to read and understand because it's normalized, right? It's easy to pick up, right? Maybe you're using AI to summarize your customer conversations and to pull out and dig deeper into those rather than having to read and tag and all sorts of stuff. I remember meeting one product team who said, and this wasn't atypical, but they'd actually measured it. They said for every hour of product conversation or customer conversation they had, there was 6 to 7 hours of like post processing work, reading it and tagging it and separating it and linking it up to different pieces that they're going to do. And a lot of that is now sped up and automated, right? It's cutting that down to like an hour. So it makes a big difference. So if you can use AI to remove the grunt work from your job so you can get more done, great, right? That's one way to improve return on investment. But the other way is, whether you can use AI in your product to help your customers meet their needs. And as to whether they can or not, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what your customers' problems are. So, the best uses are going to be the ones that really hone in on what the customer's problems are and then use the tech that's available to solve their problems, right? And if that happens to be AI, then apply it and show them how they can get through their work better or do whatever it is they're trying to do with your app better. And if that then encourages them to spend more money or more time or whatever it is that you're trying to get these out of these customers, then that's a win for your business as well. And that's not going to change, right? It's just providing that return on investment and using AI smartly. It's not just using AI because somebody next to you is using it or your competitor's using it or because the tech is there. The reason for using tech was never just because the tech was there. It was because the tech solved problems.
Yeah, like from everything I read and feel and experience, especially in product, I don't feel like AI is about to just take jobs away. Like and I'm interested to hear how you feel about that.
Yeah. So there's AI is not going to take your job as a product manager. Now there is a caveat to that because if your job as a product manager, if what you were doing is basically shuffling stuff around in a backlog and writing out user stories and basically just, feeding the development team with stuff to do that you hadn't put much thought into, and it was just, a bunch of that grunt work, then yes, that job is going to be replaced. But that was never the job of the product manager. That was just the stuff that we had to do in order to get to the point that we could communicate what we needed to do, right? There's now tools to much better communicate what it is that we're trying to do, right? Instead of having to write down specs and ask a team to make a prototype, just make a prototype, right? And it's probably not going to be perfect the first time out there because the tools are still in that awkward phase, right? But they're getting better. I mean, every day. It's ridiculous how fast things are moving. And so, if you can use tools to help you move faster and articulate the problems that you're trying to solve better, your job as a product manager is largely a communication role. And so there's ways to speed that up now. There's ways to make that easier. So yeah, your job is not going to be replaced, but you're going to be elevated if your focus was on the fact that you're a communicator and you're a problem solver, right? You're there to understand the problems that your stakeholders have and that's your customers and your internal team so that you can understand what the business how the business can meet its overall all goals, and you can communicate that to the different people around you. You've heard of the product manager as like the conductor in an orchestra, right? There's going to be bits and pieces that can be taken off that help you smooth out any of these transitions from communicating what the customer wants to the marketing team, to the dev team, to the everybody else team, and communicating that stuff back up, right? But if your job was just that grunt work, often more junior type roles,
Yeah.
then, it's probably not going to be a safe job down the line. Now, what I am afraid of is that AI is inadvertently having us pull the ladder up. I mean, I don't know about this cohort of product people, but I know back when I was a product person, I fell into the role accidentally. And I did it badly for quite a while. And for quite a while there, it was a lot of just grunt work stuff, right? I would write specs that were way too long and I wasn't a good communicator, right? I had to learn to do it more effectively as as the product management craft got better and as there was more out there to share about how to do stuff, right? My first spec was 80 pages long. If anybody, wrote that type of spec today, I'd be like, what are you thinking? Where did you learn this? Right. But that's how we were taught back then, was to make really detailed specs. But it was also by writing those really detailed specs that I learned how to communicate better. I learned which pages the devs looked at, which ones no one ever did. Right. I learned by, having to get in and work with the interfaces and, test things myself to figure out, how my products actually worked. Product people of the future, are they going to be in there doing that hands-on testing, or are they going to have AI do that hands-on testing? Are they going to lose the, I don't know, that nitty-gritty stuff that teaches you how the innards work so that you can elevate that and communicate more effectively? I worry that it's making it more difficult for juniors to just get in and do it wrong for a while so that they can learn how
Yeah.
to do it better. And that's going to be tough.
And I just saw a comment from Jonas here that says he's read some articles that AI will make it harder to justify junior hires.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's interesting what you say, a communicator and a problem solver, because I mean, I remember back in the day working in tech, and it's like there was no product. Like I remember when I first started hearing the word product, it was abstract to me. I was like, what does that even mean?
Mhm.
No, I remember I worked at a finance company a long time ago, and I actually see some people on the call here that I've worked with. My job title was web writer. We had like webmasters
I
and
was a
like big,
webmaster. Yeah.
yeah, and a webmaster, and now it's like it's product, it's different. You're communicating, you're problem solving. And something we're actually building at UX Cam right now, which is in beta testing, is it's an AI called Tara. So she sits in your like a product team. She's like a product analyst, and she goes through hundreds and hundreds of session replays. So all that grunt work that, I mean, if anyone has ever had to sit through a session replay, knows how arduous it is and how incredibly, for me, I find it the most boring experience. Like, one or two is cool, three or four is fine. And then when you get it, like to actually be able to look at everyone and then make an informed decision and then collect all that data and actually do something with it takes hours and hours and hours, right?
But flip side, I love session replays. I find that they are some of the most insightful ways to understand what's going on. I mean, short of going to that customer's desk and watching them use the product over their shoulder and hearing them talk over where they're frustrated, I think session replays are one of the best ways to understand what's going on with your customers. But you're right, they're time consuming to watch. You can get the ones that speed up a little bit, but I mean, it would be faster just to read the logs, but you don't get that information from the logs, right? And we're not at a point right now that I mean, maybe there are tools that are coming out for this, but I wouldn't trust AI to look at session replay and tell me to the point that I would think it's better than have me sense checking it, right? It would be useful to have it say, here's places you could go look. And AI has been helping with that sort of thing for a while, but I would still want to have a look and be like, what were they actually doing there, right? And you can see different things based on, how people use the app, and you can see the humanness in the movements.
I know it's so fascinating. And actually, that's what this AI that we have at UX Cam coming out with that's in beta actually does that, and says, okay, hey, Janna, this is, we had 200 users that were getting stuck here, here, and here. This is what you can do right now to actually, here's how you can fix the problem right now. So it can fix it in 3 minutes versus 3 weeks, sort of thing.
So what, like,
Just
shortcut me
speeds
to
it
the
up.
point to look at, and then I could zoom in and be like, all
Exactly.
right, just show me, how those 30 people fell over at this point.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
cool.
So is
See,
that cool?
yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
See,
So
stuff
it's
like
a
this,
beta.
right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still need to be able to understand, where you should be looking and understanding what friction looks like and feels like,
Exactly.
right? And it's going to be really interesting to understand how we're using AI to read how people use stuff when. I mean, soon enough, it's not necessarily going to be people using the stuff, right? When it's a bot coming through and doing tasks within the tool that you've set up, and that bot is an agent set up by your customer, how do you judge as to whether they're solving the problem right or not? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. We're gonna have to figure this out together, which is why this time is so exciting. But I think those answers are gonna come out over the course of the next few years as people become more adept at throwing agents at everything.
Yeah. I could talk I mean, look, we're already almost 27 minutes in and we haven't even scratched the surface. So I would love to actually turn the focus to our audience now And last night I got so many questions come in. So just to let everybody who's here on the call live and who's watching the recording know, we won't be able to get to all the questions today, but we will do our best to come back to you at another time. So I would really like to open the floor right now to anybody who's actually here live. And there's a lot of you. If you could start maybe adding some of your questions to the chat now.
Really looking forward to the questions. And, if there's anything that we don't get to, but people still have burning questions for me, connect with me on LinkedIn, say hi. I'm always happy to geek out about product stuff in general and, chat this stuff through. Because, ask me some of these questions again in 6 months' time. And, I think the answers will be different. We're learning and changing in this space so quickly.
Yeah, so I see questions in here already. Let's start with one from while people are getting questions together. This was the first question that came in last night for you, Janna, is from Abhishek. And he says, I'd love to hear more about how fast growing companies are using AI to boost efficiency and speed while keeping data security in check.
This is one of the big questions, right? It depends on whether Abhishek's talking about using AI as part of your day-to-day tools in order to remove some of that grunt work and get your job itself faster, or whether he's talking about using AI as a tool for your customers to do their jobs and solve their problems. Because in one of them, in both of them, the onus is on you to think about privacy and data protection. But in one case, you are having to sense check the tools that you're using, right? Check as to what happens to that data. Is your stuff going in for further training? Is it going to be made public in some way if somebody else asks a similar question? So you can check that stuff, and any reputable tool will be able to tell you how they use your data. They should be outlining their own data policies, and that gives you some assurance as to how you're going to be using these tools. Like with Copilot, for example, everything that you say within your ProdPad account is kept within that account, right? It's never used as training data or sent out there. We make that really clear. Some tools, they don't make that promise, right? You've got to check as to what's going to happen there, right? By default, the stuff on OpenAI goes into OpenAI training data, which is fair enough for a tool, but maybe not what you want to do. So you've got to check for your own tools, and as tools are rapidly changing and as norms are rapidly changing, keep an eye, right? This is why security teams exist, because I know. And then when it comes to, if you're building it in for your own tools, then you owe something to your customers, right? Probably legally, depending on where you're operating, but certainly morally, to disclose what's happening, be clear about what's happening with their data, and be careful with their data, right? Especially if you're working with personally identifiable stuff or things that could impact their business if something goes wrong. I think with AI, it heightens our need to think about things in terms of ethics and morals and, things along that line, because we're able to do more things faster and we could get more things wrong faster if we're not careful.
I'm sorry. I feel like I hit you with the hardest one first.
No, it was
The
great.
data.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
happy to
good.
dive in on these sorts of things.
Actually, I have one I'm also interested in. This was from Parth. Janna, what's your AI stack?
Ooh, so I use my ProdPad Copilot built in as my default go-to because it has access to everything from my vision through to what my customers have said and all the decisions that we made. So anything to do with product or strategy, that's where I go. But I also have my own Chat GPT, which I use for, frankly, all the other stuff, right? Lots of different queries all over the place and, helps you break down problems. What else do I use? Descript is a really cool one. Descript is a
Yes.
video thing. So you take a
I
video
love
and
Descript.
it will, help. I've been using it for a while for transcript stuff, but also it'll turn it into little shareable pieces. Technically, it can also do things like overdub and like change what you said and whatnot. I haven't gotten into that. I tried another tool which did like video AI stuff and it was proper uncanny valley. It was not right. So I'm like, that stuff is not baked. Send it back.
Yeah.
So basically, I end up trying a bunch of stuff, but I tend to go back to the ones that are right at my fingertips, right? The ones that are already primed with data and insight about what it is I'm trying to solve for.
Okay, another live question here. This one is from Yogendra. Do you recommend using AI to validate problem solution fit, or should that phase remain entirely human led?
Ooh, I think it should be human led, but AI can be used to speed it up, right? So, I mean, getting problem solution fit there's a lot of different steps in there, right? I mean, everything from it's great for doing base level just sense checking, going, hey, this is the problem. Have you heard of any other solutions like it, right? We recognize this competitor, but what others are like it? Give me some detail on that, right? I love running the deep research version of ChatGPT on some of these problems where it'll go out and just like think on it and then come back with sourced information about the competitive space or a particular industry that you want to tackle or stuff like that, right? And then from there you can then start asking other questions, right? And oftentimes as you're reading through this deep research report, you'll start going, oh, but what about this and what about that? And AI can help with that, but also, I mean, talking to your colleagues and asking the humans around you can be helpful. And then, of course, when it comes to getting in front of customers, again, you can use AI to help identify where to find these customers, how to reach out to them, the more transactional type emails. It can help give you a starter for 10 set of questions, but don't let it replace the actual judgment, right? Like, think about what it is you want to learn and then hone your questions from that, right? I often find it's faster just to write a bunch of my questions myself rather than getting AI to write them. Although it is good for taking like my stream of consciousness. I'll often talk at
Totally.
it and then have it turn it into like an actual readable paragraph. That's useful, right? And so, as long as you're getting your thinking into it, you're getting a reflection of your thinking out of it. You've got to make sure that you're actually leading the thinking process and not just, letting it find the solution for you.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the stream of consciousness. And when I'm problem solving or working, it's like sometimes I unload a 10-minute voice note. And so it gets the tone and the nuances, and it still has all your really important bits and your voice in it as well. So it's
Yeah.
not solving the
Yeah.
problems for you. Questions are just rolling in.
Great.
This is actually one from last night I found was really interesting. And this is from Deanna, and this is, what does using AI wrong look like in product teams?
Oh, I mean, there's probably a number of ways that we can do this, right? I mean, there's ethical boundaries, and making sure things that we need to be watching. Like we were just talking a minute ago about making sure that you are disclosing how you're using data, and that you are doing right by your customers, all the way through to making assumptions that the AI is coming back with something good and useful and productive when in fact it's not, right? It's very good at confidently being wrong. Sometimes it might be straight up hallucinations. That seems to be less of a problem these days, but it doesn't look around the corner for you unless you ask it to. It doesn't check out blind spots or sense check you, right? I actually test this with AI quite a lot. Is I'll ask it a question and it'll instantly find ways to validate it. And then I'll turn it around and say, and it'll give it the exact opposite point of view. I'm like, but I think this instead. And you know what it'll do? It'll validate it, right? It'll give me the pros and cons, regardless, depending on how I frame the question to it. But if I give it a bad idea, it's not going to be like, whoa, I mean, you shouldn't do that. And here's 5 reasons, right? Two of us might have completely different opinions. Throw it in there, and it'll be like, great idea. You should go build this. I'm like, no, you shouldn't, right? You should definitely sense check this. And AI can be one way of sense checking that, but actually talking to customers and seeing if there's any evidence out there in the real world that supports it is the best type of evidence, the best type of work you could be doing.
Absolutely. It's like, when I talk to AI or ChatGPT and stuff like that too, and I'm sure a lot of us on the call can hear this, it's like, wow, it's like I'm doing everything great. Everything's right. It's like it's not looking around the corner and it's not uncovering those blind spots. So this
Yeah.
is really
And
interesting.
the thing is, you can see how it changes based on how, the providers behind this tools change things. So I'm sure there's a lot of people here who use ChatGPT. ChatGPT went through a phase like a couple months ago where it just went like proper vacuous. Like everything you say, it was like, big up. That was the best thing I've ever heard. You are the smartest human ever. And I'm like, mate, I'm sure there might be some holes in this, right? It would absolutely big it up. And they actually there was a lot of complaints about it, right? People were making fun of it. And so they started rolling it back a little bit, right? So it's now still now like it's still your best fan, but it's not like over the top. And I mean, they could have coded it the other way, right? I mean, this is based on someone's coding behind how they're getting this thing to react to you. So you've got to be conscious of that. And I know ChatGPT and a lot of the other ones are coded to validate you, to work with you as opposed to work against you. I mean, great for user retention, I'm sure, but not great for making sure you're getting the best out of it unless you call it on it and check that stuff and check your own answers.
Yeah, and it's really about that, sense checking within yourself as well.
Mm.
Um, here's one from David. Have you had the chance to try different AI stacks to see what the differences in output is like? And if so, are the differences consistent?
Mm. I haven't done as much of that as I like. So I've played with Claude and I've played with Gemini, and I have mostly stuck with ChatGPT because it's the one that just happens to be at my fingertips, right? I also use ProdPad Copilot, which is an OpenAI GPT with lots of prompting and priming behind it, right? So I'm familiar with how those work. There are other people out there who have tested them side by side and have more results on that. And I mean, this is, I try to follow these things. I try to keep up with what's going on out there. And I see that some are better at some things, some are better at other things. Each one has like a variety of different models. I can't even tell you which is my favorite model of ChatGPT. There's a bunch of different weirdly named things. This is what I was saying about that being like that awkward period, right, in this tech growth. Right now you have to sit here and wonder like, ooh, which one do I go to? Which model do I use? Like down the line, you're not going to worry about that, right? It'll just work, right? But right now it's sort of like, oh, this model's slightly up on this one, and there's been an advancement here. But also because the companies behind them change things up, they change over time as well. Like as I was saying, ChatGPT's personality has changed for the worse and then better, and then who knows where it's going. I have no idea whether, Claude is my biggest fan ever, but I'm betting it's probably of a similar level of personality.
Yeah,
If
the
if I'm wrong
biggest
on that, let me
fan.
know. What do people think about these different models? Which ones do you use? And, have you found any interesting comparisons? I always try to follow conversations like this because you hear people talking about them, and this just gives you a sense as to, what's working, what's not working out there.
Yeah, let us know in the chat, everyone. We would love to know which tools are working,
And
the
and
best for you.
being a bit meta, I bet the product people at these companies are reading up and seeing how people react to their Gen AI tools and figuring out, okay, well, this is how people are using it. This is one of the things that's really interesting is, as going back to like comparing to when mobile came out. When mobile first came out, we weren't really sure how to like fit our information in a screen. And so we had this pinch and zoom, and then there were, because people came up with things like hamburger menus and stuff like that, right? And what do gestures mean? Some of this technology wasn't yet available, and some of this technology we hadn't figured out how to use it, right? AI today, we haven't figured out how we use it. Like, is the best way to talk to your AI, type at it and then it types back at you? Or are there going to be other ways, right? So in ProdPad, we've been exploring a lot of this, and some of the prompts are sort of baked in as like, you don't have to type and say, give me an idea on this or flesh out this idea. You just press a button and it does it for you, right? Tell me you can sense check as to whether your vision statement is any good or whether your idea aligns with your roadmap with a single button, or you can tappity type to it as well. And I think, we're still figuring out what those usage patterns are going to be. Right. And I bet the product people who are building this stuff are sitting and listening and watching what patterns exist and, how they're all copying each other and then copying what they seem to think and exploring new stuff as well. And some of the stuff is going to fall flat on its face and be like, that's not a good way to interact with it. And other things are going to be, setting the stage for how we use generative AI for, the rest of our, the next few decades.
Yeah, it's like one of those when you said a few decades, I'm like, oh no, it's just kind of here.
No,
It's
I think, I
like
mean, well,
no, but it's not going anywhere.
it's not like, I don't know, VR or something like that, which keeps trying to raise its head up and then dies back down and isn't really being used, right? This is a tool that I
VR.
think has now made a stand and it's here to stay. And that's not to say VR won't make it eventually. It's just hasn't made it yet, right? Hasn't hit that point. Whereas AI, I think, has now hit a point where I mean, I can't imagine a time in 10 years' time where we go, remember that AI craze we had? I'm so glad we went back to where we were before. Like it's going to be sticking around. And so it's just a matter of like, well, imagine how this is going to evolve. And part of that's around how we're going to interact with it and how the designers of these tools design them. Right. And this is why it's important to call out if there's things that we don't like about this stuff, right? Make a stand as users as to what our tolerance is with data privacy, for example, so that the companies, the people who design these things down the line, take this stuff in account and go, we can't solve the problem that way because that crosses an ethical boundary. And those ethical boundaries are set by our customers, telling us what's right and wrong.
So we have time for one more question, and this came in from Laura Wong. So I know Laura, she works in product, and I know her from the Hotjar days. And she actually asked if you could share some specific examples of how using AI has helped 10 times or significantly improve product outcomes.
Yeah. So I think where it really makes a difference is stacking the right pieces together, right? So we were talking earlier on about providing that ROI of product management, right? So there may be things that are sitting right in your data where it's like you've got this big pile of data, but you haven't been able to dig through it, right? You've got all these session replays or all these transcripts or all this information, and there is gold in those hills, and you haven't been able to pull it out because it's hard work for humans. There may be places that AI can pull out insights and be like, whoa, go look at this. This was really interesting. And it pulls out stuff that you then go hone in on and could do something about, right? So there's a really good chance that some of you have opportunities that have just been missed because humans are too busy to look at it, right? We've been too busy resorting our backlogs and writing user stories. And now we have time and tools. We can get to this stuff better and faster. But then also removing a lot of the grunt work with communications and making communications more clear. So if you are trying to communicate to somebody, I've got this idea of how we can solve this problem this set of customers presented to us. And it's taking you more effort than it should do to communicate that down the line, to show what that looks like and to communicate, to the people who are going to put it into production level code, what that should be. There's ways to massively speed that up, right? It's no longer pen to paper and just being like, it's like a button like this. You can literally just, say, hey, I've got this idea. I'm talking to my phone. I've got this idea, and it makes a prototype for you. And actually it makes 10 prototypes for you. And then you can quickly test those with customers around you and figure out which one seems to be working the best before you send that through, right? So you can communicate more clearly, not just with the tools you have at hand and stuff that you've written out yourself, but actually speeding it up to better articulate something and get it through. So there's both opportunities in how you solve problems for your customers that in turn will solve problems for your business. You can do a lot of that, and that could be endless amounts of upside, as well as just smoothing out the process that you have as a product person to get through it faster and make sure that there's fewer gaps in your communication.
Thank you, Janna. And I know we haven't got to everyone's questions because we just don't have enough time. We will do our best to come back to you with replies. In the meantime, please follow Janna for more product insights. And next month, we're also going to be having another special guest. So if AI is still on your mind, we're going to be talking a lot more about AI and product onboarding, which I know Janna would probably have a lot to add to that too. So Janna, this was for me such a delight. I could talk to you forever. And one thing I love about sitting with you is that you make this so digestible and usable, user friendly. You just make it understandable for all of us. And I know you're in the trenches with this every day. So thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming here and sharing your insights with us.
Yeah,
It was
thanks for
really,
saying
really
so. I really
awesome.
appreciate that. And I always love having conversations like this, just geeking out over, what product is like today, where we've come from and where we're going.
So yeah, you are welcome to come back here to UX Chem anytime.
Great.
And to everyone that joined us live, thank you so much. I know it's for some of you kindly in from Canada and all over, it's early in the morning for you, and others taking, your lunch break time with us. We really appreciate it. And follow us. Just keep following up our LinkedIn page. We'll be doing lots of great wrap up from this awesome session, and we'll have all the juicy tidbits for you so you didn't have to take notes or anything like that. We're going to take care of all of that for you. So that's it for now. And again, Janna, have a wonderful rest of your day. And everybody else, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much. I can't wait for the next one. Take care.
Take
Thanks for
care,
having me.
everyone.
Bye for now.
Take care. Bye.